All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome back to the Holler. tnholler.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook. We also have all of these hollers hollering all across the state. Thanks to your support, we always appreciate it. And we want to send a shout out to Elisa Parker. If you're buying or selling in Middle Tennessee, do it through her. If you need a lawyer, Abby Rubenfeld is very supportive of us. And if you need some jewelry, Theron, AJ Martin in Nashville is not your grandmother's jewelry store, as they like to say. All right, today we're going to talk to a friend of ours who's been on here before. Theron Bond in Memphis has a story to tell. We wanted to let her come on here and holler about it and ask her a couple questions about it. Then we're going to talk about some stuff that's going on in Tennessee also. So stick with us, and we can see your comments as you comment along. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to throw it in the comments there. And how you doing today?
Ooh, I wish I was doing a lot better. I was really excited about Juneteenth, especially considering my history around Juneteenth and shouting down the governor a couple of years ago. But it's
Yeah.
cumbersome today knowing that my car is missing a window.
Okay, so tell us about what happened. You got broken into in Memphis, and it speaks to other issues that are going on systemically around the Memphis area specifically, and also probably in other places. But what happened to you?
So let me preface this by saying I do drive a Kia. I've driven a Kia for several years before it was a thing, before it was the hot car theft. Um, Actually, my Kia was the first car that I bought 100% on my own, paid cash for it, no car note. So it's very, very sentimentally special to me. But on Monday, I woke up to a text from my apartment manager stating that several Kias in our parking lot had been broken into or had busted windows. Now, I live in an apartment in Midtown that has secure gated parking, or seemingly secure gated parking. I have a little clicker just like people have for their garages, and that's what grants me access to this gate. I've lived here 4 years in the same space. I originally picked these apartments, one, proximity, two, because I had gated parking. And as you know, having done some work in LA, parking is crazy. So anything to resolve a parking issue is going to be a highlight for a resident. So picked this because of that. I was actually still going through cancer treatment at the time. They had elevators, like, these apartments are great, everything. Monday, that all changed when I woke up. I threw on my robe, went outside, past my apartment manager, said, "Hey, has my kid been affected?" She's like, "I think so." Very kind of lackluster, slow response. I walk out and I see the back left window is completely shattered. And I have like rain guards, so that's gone. There's glass inside and outside of my car, and it's just completely open. I didn't know what to do in that moment. I think anytime I've gone anywhere in the city, I've said, my car's still here. I go in, I come out. I'm so grateful for my car to still be here and in one piece. There have been all these jokes about it. And I guess today was my turn for it to happen to me, and I hate it so bad. Oddly enough, police were already at my building for another issue. So I go up, I get my ID, I take pictures of the gate. Now, the really important thing about this is that there's a sign outside of my gate that talks about it being parking permit only. You get towed. There's a sign that says there's recording in progress with a little camera and all the language. There are also 9 cameras on the back of my building alone that span the length of the parking lot and face everything from the pool to the parking lot to the doors to the actual entrance gate and the back of the property next door. I asked my apartment manager, I said, "Hey, do you think there's any footage captured?" She said, "I don't think so." I had police, which was already an odd situation, say, "Can you ask my apartment manager if there's any footage?" Maybe legally she can't tell me. She tells MPD that the cameras do not work. They have not worked for years. So on top of a bad situation now, there's no immediate evidence that we have access to catch the culprits and receive any form of justice because these cameras don't work. And I, along with at least 40 to 50 other people, pay a monthly parking fee to park seemingly safe and secure in this building. And with there being such a high string of thefts for Hyundais and Kias, especially, not only do you have to go through, do I tell my insurance company, because insurance rates have already doubled and tripled for some, because of accident rates, because of thefts, because of break-ins in our area. But now you have to work to get it replaced. So there's a cost of replacing it. There's the mental and emotional trauma behind it. There's also, if there's glass available, and then the steering column. So on first look, it was the glass is shattered, my rain guard is done. When I open up the front door, the driver's door, my whole steering column was pulled apart. It looked like if you were building some contraption and all the pieces were kind of hanging and then you put them together. Well, they were apart. Luckily, my car started, but I don't know if I can drive it. It's perceived to be drivable, but that's how my week has been.
So were you saying that the cameras at your apartment complex hadn't been working for years and there were like 10 of them?
According to my apartment manager, those camera, the nine, at least the 9 cameras on the back of the building have not worked in years, despite signs indicating that it is secure, that there is recording in progress.
And
Um,
aren't you paying extra for having
yes,
like a secure complex?
absolutely, every month. So it's not like a yearly fee that's kind of prorated or discounted anyway. It's an additional fee, that I pay on top of the fee for my rent every month, to have a parking space, to have a safe parking space, and none of the cameras work.
That's crazy. And have the residents talked about doing anything about false advertising when it comes to the complex saying that you're safer than you are and making you pay for it?
So oddly enough, one of the other Kia drivers I saw when I was getting some folks to help me patch up my window, and she was under the impression that the cameras work, and I was told something different. So now we have a property management company and apartment management giving multiple stories based on who they talk to. She has said that she wants to, seek action to make sure it doesn't happen again, and that she's aware of other incidents. I have had a consultation with at least one attorney and have a second reviewing things, and I've talked to a former judge about this as well.
It seems like the apartment complex would have some sort of insurance policy that would be based on cameras, be based on, what measures they've taken. So, you know, I don't know, it just seems like fraud and something that they should be held accountable for.
Yeah, it seems like negligence. It seems like fraud. It seems like false advertising. It
Yeah.
seems like breach of contract. And of course, I'm not the legal expert, but having a number of conversations with different folks in the legal community, these are all terms that come to mind. And on its surface, I'm aware of what negligence is. I know that I am paying for safe, secure parking, and I am not getting my money's worth. And obviously, having done so in the past 4 years, the what makes it even worse is that the main doors to the building have been completely unlocked. I have fob access to my building. In
It's
the past
crazy.
days, they've been unlocked for a number of times. And I spoke with my apartment manager. I said, well, we've got issues with security at our gate. Now we've got issues with security in our building. And was told that they were reprogramming the doors. They got new computers, they got new systems. So, this property management company, which is Stella Maris Property, they obviously have money to make necessary improvements, and you would think that the security of tenants would be priority number one. What makes this story even worse is that I asked my apartment manager for the contact information. Give me a director, a manager, somebody in the property management space. She gave me a woman whose name is Pam Anderson, not to be confused with the Pam Anderson, the blonde bombshell that we are all aware of, but the COO, excuse me, of Stella Maris Property. She gave me a phone number and an email address. I've called Pam Anderson several times between Monday and today and have gotten no response. I've left a voicemail with that person and the other person on the list of people that you can speak with and leave a message for. No response. So I actually went up to the building. Monday evening, and I spoke with a second person and said, "Hey, I'm trying to reach the COO. I'm a tenant. There's been an issue." And they assured me that Pam Anderson was out of town on Monday. She would be back the next day and would return calls. Well, Pam Anderson, it's Friday. You've not returned a call. You've not so much as sent an email. My apartment manager has not sent out any correspondence to residents indicating that there has been a rash of break ins. Protect yourself, look out for one another, any improvements or upgrades to security at our building. So it's a real shit show around here, and it really, really sucks because rent is already high enough. Some folks are barely making it. We pay to have safe, secure parking. We pay to at least be able to lock our doors and understand that nobody can get in. And right now, all of that is at risk, and the people who make decisions are completely unavailable.
Well, I'm glad you came on here and told your story. Definitely lets people understand that there's stuff like that to look out for, and people should check with their own apartment complexes and make sure that they're as secure as they say they are. I know you're in Memphis. Are you down to stay and talk about a couple things that happened in Memphis in the
Yeah,
last
sure.
week? All right, great. So,
Yeah.
as people know, we send out an email twice every week that has kind of a wrap up of what's going on in Tennessee. Just went out this morning. You can sign up for that at tnholler.com. Definitely encourage you to do that and encourage others to also. It's a good way to keep up with some of the nonsense. And a couple things that have happened in Memphis this week, and actually one that I think you might be able to shed some light on. First of all, as most people I think know by now, last night both Justin Jones and Justin Pearson won their primaries in their special elections, which was as expected, and are likely on their way to being reinstated as representatives in the special session in the special election, which they already are. But also in Memphis, there's something going on right now with the superintendent search and the school board. And we have recently seen a handful of education advocates in Memphis banned from the school board meetings theoretically by the school board. I'm not sure specifically who on the school board is doing that, but it seems like maybe collectively they're all doing it. And it seems to be related to the superintendent search and basically installing the interim superintendent who may be friendly to charters and privatization in a way. I'm just telling you what I know about it, so you can correct me. And then recently, 2 days ago, we just had the vice chair resign, saying this is the highest level of ignorance as they tried to lower the requirements for being superintendent to make it so that you don't really even need education experience. So, Theron, I know you're paying attention to this stuff. What is going on with the Shelby County School Board and the superintendent search, and how much of that did I just screw up?
Oh my God, it is so nuts in Memphis right now. I wish I could turn it off, but it is. Oh my God, it is probably the hottest unfortunate thing right now. The biggest thing to remember is when we talk about school boards, we've seen a number of fights and very tight situations all across this country over the past couple of years. And this is about educating our youth. So who's thinking about educating the youth first? And it doesn't seem like kids are on the forefront of the decision makers' mind, at least not all of them. Right now we've got a school board that is in complete disarray. We've got a chair that, as of this morning, Vice Chair Harris released a statement overnight, and indicated some very telling things about what's happening. Indicated that there has been a misappropriation of funds, that there is a high level of corruption going on, and all roads lead back to Chair Althea Green. She's not alone in this. Let's be very clear. She is not alone in this because the board is made up of several people. And so it takes a number of things, a certain number of votes to make anything pass. But how many of these decisions are being made behind closed doors without the feedback of the entire board before it hits the public and before the decision is cemented and the ink is dry? And right now we've got a school board chair who hops in front of a camera camera every 5 seconds after something happens and wants to give her side, but she's not as vocal when public comments take place during these school board meetings, unless they say her name by mistake or on purpose. Then she's up in arms. But
What
she
justification did they give for kicking these people out of these meetings? That's what I don't understand.
According to Chief Jackson, it's that they posed a public threat. Those are their words, that they posed a public threat. They made people feel uncomfortable. That they one of them repeatedly said Superintendent Tony Williams' name. And across all our bodies of government, yes, there are rules that indicate you cannot specifically say a person's name or whatever. You can say their title, but not their name. But here's something that was recently missed. Rachel Spriggs specifically, there was a meeting and she said Tony Williams' name, and then she said it, and then she caught herself, and then it was an issue, and they cut off her comments.
You can't say the name. I'm just confused. That's a rule that you can't
Yeah,
say someone's
it,
name.
it says that you cannot identify someone specifically. You could say superintendent, you could say school board member of district so and so, but you cannot say, Tony Williams, or you cannot say Althea Green, or you cannot say specific things that allude directly to the person that is at
And
fault,
then and then they can
right?
ban
It's
you and have cops and
absolutely insane.
barricades there to keep you out of meetings if you say someone's name. It's so
Yeah,
ridiculous. Like the
but
videos,
here's the
we
thing.
shared them. It's crazy.
Right. But here's what happened. So that's kind of the premise of the setup for Rachel Spriggs being banned. But a couple meetings later, Commissioner Erica Sugarman was at the meeting and expressed her explicit support for Superintendent Tony Williams and said her name at least 3 times. She wasn't cut off, she wasn't chastised, and she certainly wasn't banned. And I get that there may be a little bit more grace extended to some elected officials, but here's the thing: if we're talking about equity across the board, that means if you don't want the public to say it, it shouldn't matter where they're just a civilian, they're elected or non-elected. The rules should apply to everybody if we're going to enforce the rules. And nobody is talking about that. And understand, like, I know all of these people. I have various relationships
Right. So
with.
what's really going on? Like what's really going
What's
on?
really going on is Chair Althea Green is messing it up, and her hands are not clean. There are other board members whose hands are not clean, and she is at the top of it, and she is mad that she is being called out about it. Let's just call it what it is. She is mad that she's being called out about it, and she's looking for any opportunity that she can to shut it down. But what makes it more interesting is that now there are other school board members who wanted to see additional qualifications for the superintendent, who wanted to really enforce the fact that that person needed to have 10 years of educational administrative experience. And now they're foregoing that because of public pressure, whatever deals are being made. And now the qualifications that they're wanting to institute at this point point to it being set up for Superintendent Tony Williams to be in there permanently.
And why do you think they want to install Tony Williams? Like, is this somehow tied to the privatization agenda and charter schools? Is Tony sympathetic to that stuff, or is it just she has relationships?
I think she's got some really, really deep relationships that I truly hope unfold to the public, because it is unfair to every child, every teacher, every administrator, every principal, every person in Memphis Shelby County school system that has to work under these guidelines. It is unfair to them that a superintendent who technically has no in classroom experience is going to be leading a school system of over 100,000 kids. It doesn't add up, especially when we talk about some of the other people who are in this process. Rod Richmond was in this process. Dr. Whitelaw was in this process. Principal Hunter was in this process. There are other people with significant experience within this school system that are much more qualified than an interim superintendent on its face. And now on Tuesday, we've got to look at, well, is her contract going to be extended? Are they just going to make her the permanent superintendent? And whose interests are being attended to? Is it certain members of the school board, or is it the best interest of parents, students, and administrators?
Well, again, we had a vice chair of the school board resign, saying this is the highest level of ignorance as they tried to lower the qualifications for being the superintendent. And then these education advocates who have been banned are now suing the school board for violating their First and I think 14th Amendment rights. The lawsuit was just filed. And I think we may have some of those advocates on the holler next week. I think they're going to come on here. So it's
Yeah.
just something to keep an eye on. Theron obviously is there and it shows up at these meetings. So she has some good insight into what's going on there. So we'll certainly keep an eye on that. Another thing that's happening right now is there's a big push for the special session in August about gun safety reform. And our headline today of our email that went out is that Lee's moonwalk is beginning. The Tennessean had an article today that shows that he is now already backing off of his call for the special session to be about keeping guns from dangerous people. Now he's saying, well, we need to make it about mental health. He's saying that any law about guns is going to have to come from basically the legislators who are not going to do it. You know, some will propose it, but it'll get shot down. He's not showing leadership. He's not standing up to them, even though we just saw this week the Tennessee Firearms Association, their own survey came back saying that 62 to 25 Tennesseans support a red flag law. They then went on to say, well, if you qualify it by saying that leaves the person in society, it goes down to like 41-37, but it's still a majority support a red flag law. So, Theron, what do you think about Governor Lee, who I know you have yelled at in the past, backtracking on his commitment to have a special session about gun safety, which we know most people want? Does it shock you that he's going to be a coward?
Oh my gosh, the timing is not lost on me because it's really, really close to Juneteenth. The right festivities are happening this weekend. I mean, we might as well call him Backpedal Bill Lee. We can call him Moonwalking Bill Lee. We can call him Backpedal Bill Lee. We've been here before. We've been here where he said things and we get a bit excited about it and go, maybe he's going to do the right thing this time. Maybe he's going to really fight for the best interests of Tennesseans. And here we are again, being let down. You know, unfortunately, people in our state that are ill-intended can easily be bought off. That's honestly been our problem in our state and several counties and municipalities, that these folks can so easily be bought off and they forget how they got there. They forget that some voter somewhere voted because they believed in them and they thought they were going to fight for them. And I think the biggest problem that we see is Republicans like to get caught up on language. They have this big adverse reaction to hearing red flag laws, or you're going to take our guns, or you just want us to not be able to protect ourselves. And so there started to be this term kind of coming into the mix called ERPA, or extreme risk protection orders. I don't care what you call it, but
Right.
deserve to be protected, not just in one county or two, but in all 95 counties across this state. Tennesseans want to know that they are safe and that they are secure. And here's the thing, if you actually talk to a lot of people who believe in common sense gun laws, you would be astonished to find out many of them are actually gun owners. So people are not saying, take away your guns. People are not saying abolish your guns. People are saying, if you're going to own a gun, one, have a permit, take the class, get educated about it, and also safely store it, secure your weapon, and let's put things in place so that guns don't get in the wrong hands of people who intend to cause harm in this state, which by default, because of the makeup of our state and the access, disproportionately affect black and brown people. And
Absolutely
our
true.
gun statistics are going up like crazy all across the state, especially in Memphis.
Absolutely true. And again, the survey sent out by the Tennessee Firearms Association shows that people want a red flag law. They even called it a red flag law. So, like you say, they try to play word games with the extreme risk protection order. But even when you call it a red flag law, it had support in the Tennessee Firearms Association's own survey. And then I know you saw this there, and they put out a Twitter poll, which is always a fun idea. And they got an answer that they probably weren't looking for. They said Governor Lee's proposal doesn't take the dangerous individual out of the community. So they're advocating for literally committing somebody instead of taking their guns. And then they want to say that that is more freedom loving than just taking the guns. It's crazy. And they got 95% said the guns, because when they do these Twitter polls, it always blows up in their faces. And then this was the article I was referring to there in the Tennessean. They said Bill Lee appears to be backing away from his proposal to establish an extreme risk protection order. And then at the end, it says it's a change compared with the governor's admonishment of lawmakers in April when he said, we owe Tennesseans a vote. So he went from we owe Tennesseans a vote to backing off to letting us down to, like Theron said, being backpedaling Bill Lee. And it's time to pressure everybody right now. This is the moment. Protect Kids Not Guns Tennessee has a GoFundMe out there. They want to put this billboard up there. And it says, Governor Lee, secure the special session for gun reform. Don't surrender to extremist politicians. And it's got Speaker Sexton, who is really the biggest problem there in the background. I highly recommend everybody go chip into those billboards because I would like to see those all over the state there. What about you?
I would too. I actually saw one of the ones of Bill Lee dressed in drag, and I was so excited. I was so excited that it had finally made its way to Shelby County. But yeah, um, this is not the time to let up. I think we've got to continue to apply the pressure and strike while the iron is hot. I will say this, Republicans aren't backing down; they're doubling down. I really want to see, our Democrats who are few, but they are mighty. And I think with, especially with the Justins being reinstated into their positions, I think this is the time. There's national outcry, there's statewide outcry, there's local outcry. What is it gonna take to move these things forward in our state and protect all Tennesseans, not just the ones that they agree with, but every single person? And you would think, I think it was Billy's wife who had a friend or something that was affected by the Covenant School shooting. How close to home does it have to get before decisions are made in the best interest of all Tennesseans, despite their socioeconomic status, their race, their proximity to issues? We've got to do something, and now is the time to do it.
Yeah, who you're talking about is Catherine Cooch. She was the principal. She lives in Williamson County. Apparently, Governor Lee and his wife, or maybe just his wife, were supposed to have dinner with her, I think that night or the night after when she was killed. So, right, when it hits close to home, you would think that that would encourage him to do something about it. But we've also seen Governor Lee spearhead attacks on LGBTQ people, even though his own sister is married to a woman. So, he's a pretty shameless dude, and it doesn't seem to impact him even when it impacts his own life. And here we see him again backing off of this stuff. So, like Darren said, now is the time to speak up, call your legislators, and chip into that billboard. We mentioned that the Protect Kids Not Guns group, who have been showing up at the Capitol every week to keep the pressure on, they're raising money for this. So go find that and chip into it. Just as a last thing before we get out of here, some people were outside. Yes, that was them. Some people were outside the Gallatin courthouse today for gun regulations. That was Protect Kids Not Guns. They were actually there. That was their rally today. This is their art for that. So thank you for bringing that up, Christine. They were there today in Sumner County, which is William Lambert's district, pushing for gun safety reform. So I'm curious to see if there was some video of that. Just as a last thing, what do you know about the Memphis mayor's race? What's going on there?
You know, what's going on is it's a crowded race, in Nashville, it's a crowded race too. It seems like this is the year of crowded races in Tennessee. I think we're going to see some surprises. From what I understand, there are some staff changes amongst teams. There are robocalls that are going to be going out. There are radio ads that are going to be going out, even TV ads that are going to be going out. And, may the best man or woman win. I think a lot of support is going to shift. I think the closer we get to July and certainly September and October, I think those skeletons are going to just begin to roll out the closet. We're going to see just how strong those comms teams are and those crisis campaign folks are. But it's exciting to watch, but it's also very sad to see that not everybody can get on the same page, and we truly need a mayor going forward that's going to think about every neighborhood in Memphis. And this is the first time in somewhat over 50 years that we're going to have a non-incumbent mayor. So we've got to get this right here in Memphis too. And our race is crowded enough. And what I personally ask people is, can you enact the change that you want to affect in Memphis without being mayor? And if the answer is yes, I need you to have already been doing that and certainly elevate that. But let somebody who truly wants to be mayor and think about everyone be mayor and not just be held down by developers or held down by C-suite folks or held down because they have law enforcement backgrounds. Because I'll tell you, our sheriff is running, and he says he likes to say he has over 40 plus years of law enforcement experience. But if crime is continuously going up in the city of Memphis, how well is that experience working out for us?
Well, I noticed that you didn't say any names in there. So are there any that come to mind that are front runners, at least not that you might want or that you might want, but you know, who does it seem like has the edge right now? Anybody?
It depends on who you talk to. Some people would say Sheriff Bonner has the edge because he had bipartisan support for his last sheriff's race. But there are a lot of things going on in 201 right now, and I question his law enforcement experience for the city to look like it does. I think if you've had that much experience, we would have seen some formidable results. I think a lot of people are interested in a young mayor. You get Paul Young, if you want to look at a young mayor. But I think there are some challenges that he has with his relationships being close to C-suite people and developers, and people are very worried about his proximity to Mayor Strickland. And then you've got Van Turner, who was a former commissioner and just rolled off this last cycle. And I think he's a very kind of quiet soul, and I think people are looking for more bold and vocal action, and he's not raised the money that people have expected. And we know that both he and Sheriff Bonner had a residency issue. They didn't live in the city limits, and people want to know, if you live in the county area, run for county mayor. Nobody's stopping you. Why do you want to run a city that you don't live in? And yes, we know the court case happened and they ruled that it was okay, but there are so many more issues with our city charter. And then you've got JW Gibson, who's married to Kathy Buckman Gibson, who's an heir of the Buckman family, and what that means for him to be a self starter and a business guy, and how that's working well or not for his campaign. So a lot of the people that are rising to the top are, Bonner and Turner and Paul Young and JW. Then you've got Michelle McKissick, who's a school board member right now, and people are questioning her absences, when she's not on the school board or when she's doing mayoral stuff, where she is there, and what she's done for youth or what she can do for youth, and how that's reflected or not on the school board. Tennessee Minority House Leader Karen Camper, she's out there too. We know there's some disadvantages to not being able to raise money while you're in session, but she's solid. And we've got over 14 people in the race now. Those, I would say, are the ones that people are talking the most about. And then there's a sleeper, Reggie Hall. He's very, very vocal. He's very, very brass, and sometimes he starts off a little rocky, but he gets a couple of hot points in there, and you go, wow, okay, he kind of makes sense. And we've got Judge Joe Brown and Harrington, which, if you ask me, and this is probably the first time I've said this out loud, I've said it in a lot of private circles. Harrington and Judge Joe Brown are about the same. They're the very vocal. They have some version of a track record, and people are looking for out loud, very proud, sure of themselves, going to get things done. And so that may outweigh for voters when they're looking for, well, we want to get something done, but let's talk about it. They're more of the action than the talk, which could lead to them getting more votes, but it could also lead to them splitting votes. So it's anybody's race right now, but they're all so different. So what everybody is looking for now is somebody to distinguish themselves very clearly and rise above the fold. And whoever can do that the fastest and the best is probably going to be the winner come October 5th.
See that? Look at that. We just brought you some Memphis Mayor's Race insight from Theron Bond that you only get right here on the Holler. Theron, thanks for jumping on here. Thanks for telling us what's going on in Memphis. Let's have you back on here soon and hear more.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right, take care. That's Theron Bond, Memphis. Follow her. She knows her stuff over there. Some good insight about what's going on in the Memphis Mayor's Race. There's a Nashville Mayor's Race going on right now. and it sounds like crowded fields abound. And it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. I don't think anybody has really asserted themselves in either of those races. So it'll be in the coming months. We'll see how that all shakes out. Again, check out tnholler.com to subscribe and support. This was the email we sent out this morning about Lee's moonwalk. And it's really a disgrace that he is already backing off his calls to make the special session about keeping guns out of the hands of dangerous people. I know he met with some Democratic legislators the past few weeks, and it seems like he was making the rounds and meeting up with people to tee up his excuse that, oh, I talked to them and there just wasn't the support for it, so I can't support an extreme risk protection order, even though the majority of Tennessee does. That is not leadership. That is not leadership. So Governor Lee is a lot of things, but a leader is not one of them. And again, go chip in to Protect Kids Not Guns billboard on their GoFundMe, organized by Chandler Quayle. They are trying to put those up around the state to put the pressure on right now. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you next week.